Okay, welcome to the June 4th, 2018 City of Pacifica Planning Commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Rubenstein. Here. Commissioner Stedgink.
Present.
Vice Chair Clifford.
Here.
Chair Campbell.
Here.
Commissioner Gordon.
Here.
Commissioner Kresge.
Here. All right, salute to the flag. Commissioner Rubenstein, please.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubenstein. All right, on to administrative business. Approval of the order of agenda. All right, Commissioner Clifford.
I move to approve the order of agenda.
Commissioner Gordon.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we've had a motion and a second. Please vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Maybe
I
not.
think my
I think Kresge's up.
it's not working.
Oh, is
Or
it?
maybe
Oh,
it's
it's just off. It's just off one.
Is there one on the other side that you can
Yeah,
use?
maybe I'll just use this one.
Excellent.
There we go.
All right,
And a ghost vote.
and a ghost vote. It's more than approved. Next is the approval of the minutes for May 21st, 2018. If we can have a motion, Commissioner Gordon.
I'll move that we approve the minutes of May 21st, 2018.
Commissioner Clifford.
I'll second that motion.
We've had a motion, second. Please vote. All right, unanimous. And on to designation of a liaison to the city council meeting. Looks like none's required. Moving on, if I'm right on that, to oral communications. This portion of the agenda is available to the public to address the Planning Commission on any issue within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission that is not on the agenda. The time allowed for any speaker will be 3 minutes. If anyone out there wishes to speak, they'd fill out a card, bring it up here. I don't see any cards, so we're going to move on. No consent items, so we're moving on to a public hearing. First public hearing for a specific plan for the construction of a 3-story, 3,643 square foot single-family residence on a 5,618 square foot vacant lot at 327 Beaumont Boulevard. The recommended action to approve as conditioned. Staff report, please.
Good evening. I'm Contract Planner Ranu Agarwal from the Planning Department. The project before you proposes construction of a 3-story, 3,643 square foot single-family residence on a 5,618 square foot lot at 327 Beaumont Boulevard. The project site is steeply sloping and slopes up from Beaumont Boulevard, which is located to the southwest side. It is currently undeveloped and contains overgrown grasses, shrubs, and some trees, and includes 2 heritage trees at the site's southeastern boundary. The project proposes a removal of the 2 heritage trees for the construction of the proposed improvements on the site. The general plan land use designation applicable to the site is low-density residential, which permits residential development at an average density of 3 to 9 units per acre. The proposed development of 1 single-family residence on a 5,618 square foot lot is consistent with the use type and densities allowed within the zoning designation. It is located within the PD, or Planned Development Zoning District. Within this district, regulations for area coverage, density, yards, parking height, and open ground area are guided by the regulations of the residential, commercial, or industrial zoning district, which is most similar in nature and function to the proposed project type. And in this case, based on that, the regulations of the R1 single-family residential zoning districts will apply. The project conforms to the applicable zoning standard, subject to draft conditions of approval number 3, which speaks to restricting the height of the building to the maximum allowable of 35 feet, and condition number 4, which restricts the width of the driveway to 20 feet, which is, as proposed, is approximately 31 feet wide. The PD zoning also requires approval of a specific plan prior to issuance of a building permit for construction, for which the Planning Commission must make 2 findings. 1, that the specific plan is consistent with the approved development plan, and 2nd, that the specific plan is consistent with the city's adopted design guidelines. An approved development plan contains a list of approved uses for an area within the PD zoning. The site is located in the Fairmont Unit Number 2C subdivision, which was approved by the city in 1965. Due to the age of this development, the original development plan for the neighborhood has not been located, but based on the type and pattern of development which is throughout this neighborhood, staff has inferred that a detached single-family residence such as that is proposed with the project is consistent with the approved development plan for the area. The project in staff's assessment is also consistent with the city design guidelines, subject to draft conditions of approval number 2, number 5, and number 6, which speak to the treatment of retaining walls, site grading, and railing material for a proposed deck above the mezzanine level, which is included in the project. The project proposes removal of 2 heritage trees, a Monterey cypress and a Monterey pine, which are in the front portion of the site near the site's southeastern boundary. The removal of these 2 trees can potentially be supported as in balance the criteria based on which heritage tree removal may be granted can be supported. So the criteria, which includes but is not necessarily limited to, that the condition of the tree with respect to disease, general health, damage, public nuisance, danger of falling, proximity to existing or proposed structure, interference with utility lines, and the ability to host a plant which is parasitic to another tree, or is in danger of being infested by a parasite, or whether the action is necessary for the economic viable use of the property, and whether the topography of the land, what is the topography of the land and the effect of the requested action on it. Of these 2 trees, the Monterey pine is located toward the front property line, and it has shown symptoms of pine pitch canker disease, which is a fungal disease, and there is a structural defect in the tree that it is composed of 2 stems. The canopy of the Monterey cypress extends into the buildable area of on the lot, and in staff's recent assessment, the project, if made to move outside the drip line of the tree, may not be able to meet the zoning, may not be able to be designed to meet the zoning standards that are applicable to the site. We have received neighbor comments on this project. One of them has to do with the preservation of the heritage trees, and it is the neighbors believe that the trees are probably partly on his property. But based on the total information that staff had in front of us in the analysis, it is our understanding that the trees are on the project site of on the site of the project, and in the right of way as far as the Monterey pine in the front is concerned. So in balance, I believe staff can recommend approval on the project for the construction of the residence and authorization for the removal of the heritage trees on the site. So that concludes staff presentation. I'm open for any questions.
Okay, we're going to have questions for staff. Commissioner Clifford.
Yes, on the survey portion of the plans, which I believe is the last page, I don't even think it has a page number, is the topographical map at the back. I'm very curious about the trees. The one in the southern corner appears to be not only on the property that's before us, but in the city right-of-way and also on the adjacent property. It's like that one, just based on what I'm seeing here, is a shared tree. It's not, it doesn't indicate by this, which was done by the survey people, that that tree is wholly owned by the applicant. There's the next one up is that's marked 18 inches, which I believe means it's 18 inches around 2 feet up, is actually just a stump out there. I went out and took some pictures. And the biggest drip line has is indicating 6 inches at 2 feet up, but that particular tree is the Monterey cypress, and its trunk is at least twice as big as the one down in the lower corner. So I get a sense that it's also a shared tree. I'm not clear on that. So my question to staff is do you actually have the survey report here? The actual, all the numbers and everything, and how it was accomplished?
We do not. The entire information of the topographic survey is included on the plan sheet that you referenced.
Okay. Well, the 6 inches is clearly wrong. I'm going to have a problem with what's in front of me because that just doesn't add up with what's out there on the site. So that's that. Thank you.
Commissioner Stettin. Oh, no? Okay, Commissioner Gordon.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question that's specifically related to the Peters letter on the adjacent property there. Is there any responsibility among the applicant to repair the adjacent property?
Repair the adjacent property from the shoring that was apparently done?
That's correct, yeah. It's really dug out. It's a bizarre jumble of past applications. I'm just curious if there's any responsibility among the applicant to take care of that as part of this project.
I don't have a good understanding of what damage you're asking the applicant should repair. I understand there was a claim of over excavation with improper shoring by a prior property owner, which,
I would say that's accurate.
yeah. And are you specifically talking about the claimed undocumented fill and whether that needs to be removed and remediated?
Yeah.
That is on the project site. I don't believe that was something that was identified, at least in the geotech report that the applicant submitted on the neighbor's property.
I'm specifically talking about something east of the, west of the project property on there, and I assume that's what the Peters and Souza were referring to. It's quite obvious when you,
Well, I believe that the Peters letter is from 329
Yes.
Beaumont,
the
which
previous
is
one.
to the east. And so if there's damage or other features to the west, I'm not sure that they would relate to damage incurred by the owner of 329 Beaumont. But I think further to Ms. Agarwal's point, the project would have to account for the site conditions and whatever undocumented fill or other soil conditions are there, and has been designed to account for those.
okay.
Anything beyond the property line, I believe, is not in question based on the information we have.
It's my understanding he's referring to 327 Beaumont is, maybe I've got my directions wrong, but towards the ocean from the project property?
Right, so the Peters owner is at 329, just to the right or to the east of 327 Beaumont, which is the subject application site. So there are claims of the over-excavation and placement of undocumented fill in the past. Those are issues that need to be worked through by the project applicant to ensure that the site's designed and constructed safely, if
Thank you.
approved.
That's all.
Commissioner Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to follow up on Commissioner Clifford's comments and questions. Just for my own curiosity, so if one of the trees is located if it's on both the project site, also on a neighboring site, what are the legal implications? Removing the tree require the consent and agreement of both property owners, or how does that work?
The ordinance itself is not, it doesn't speak to that, but the property owners would need to resolve that amongst themselves.
So that sounds like you need mutual consent. You need consent of all the property owners whose tree is on their property.
The ordinance doesn't specify what to do in that circumstance, but should the commission wish to proceed with entitling the tree removal, the city can do that. The commission can do that. And if there's any dispute about the whereabout of the tree, the property owner can settle that dispute with the neighbor.
So what you're saying is that we can actually agree to the removal of the tree, and it doesn't matter if it's a shared tree or not.
That's correct.
So then go ahead.
I would just add that the staff was not aware that there was a controversy over removal of the tree until today, and so there may be many unanswered questions about, the relationship between the neighbors that maybe is better vetted, with any public comments that might come up, or with a query to the applicant as far as what outreach may have been done with the neighbor.
Sounds good.
Okay, Commissioner Rubenstein.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on that, if there was any history between the parties about maintenance of these trees or pruning or any other correspondence between the parties regarding this tree over the course of their, property ownership.
Right. Staff's not aware of any history in that regard.
Okay, I don't see any more questions for staff. So at this point, we'll ask the applicant to come up. You'll have 10 minutes to present your project.
Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Derek Vinn. I'm representing the owners and from ICE Design. We're an architectural engineer firm, and thank you for letting me speak tonight. And I'd like to direct your attention to the screen behind you for quick presentations.
Should we dim the lights?
It might all
need
go
to.
off if we try to turn off the lights.
I think we get it on our screens here.
We've got it in front of us here. I say we actually have screens directly in front of us if it's tied into that.
Is his mic turned on?
Oh,
Is your mic turned on?
No, I'm good.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there may be an issue with Ms. Agarwal's microphone. We'll try to speak more directly or get a different.
It's a video and the sound is different speed. So the video will come first and the sound will come later.
Right,
That's
understood. I'm just not understanding the ladies' issue here.
That's what she said.
I mean, you can't, it's off, it's the movement of the lips is not the same as the.
yeah.
It's delayed.
There's just a difference in transmission. It's unavoidable, unfortunately. Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I would like to give a little background on the projects. Property owner 324 Beaumont, he's in the Bay Area native. He's been a contractor in the Bay Area for the last 30 years. And this is a project that he'd like to build for his retirement. He and his family are looking to stay in Pacifica for his retirement. And this is something that he's looking forward to build for his family and himself. It's a very personal project, and he'll be the one who actually work on the project himself as well. And that's just a smaller background on that. And the building design is designed in step and details design, so we can reduce and minimize the massing of the building, and then the visual impact on the street. There's a proper fenestrations and installations for high energy use, especially utilizing the sun, natural lights, and ventilations that you can see in the design. The deck design is actually integrated with our architectural work. We're utilizing part of our top of our garage for our deck, so to maximize the view, the natural suns, and to reduce energies. It's more green and efficient. The deck tone will be a warmer tone. Since we are on a downslope, we want to reduce the glaring to the upper property if we use a little bit too lighter tone of the deck, so we use a warmer tone to reduce glaring. One of the concerns is the retaining walls. We're gonna have a decorative veneer retaining wall, so we won't have that concrete finish, and indirect LED lights so it won't be intrusive into the street side. We also integrated our landscaping design into this, into the property. Low water usage plants, permeable pavement will be used. Conference accessibility plants, landscape, so the owners can maintain and to keep out the appearance. We also have, regarding of the replacement trees now, we're planning to, if we are allowed to have 2 replacement trees or to remove the 2 trees, our plan for the replacement trees will be something that doesn't grow too tall, so it doesn't block view from the building behind us. That's something that we're planning to do if we are allowed to remove the 2 trees for the replacement tree that we're planning to plant. And this is a project that was approved adjacent to us in 325 Beaumont in 2016 by the Planning Commissioner. Where our projects is to design something compatible, something similar to what's approved to our neighboring residents. As you can see, our design are very similar. In modern style, we're trying to keep it's a stucco siding finish with fenestrations that, that present itself in a modern scale. And the scale of the home is to fit with neighboring residents, so it doesn't pop out, it doesn't feel, it doesn't belong in Pacifica, especially with this project that has been built in 325. A little bit touch up on at the end. We want to let our neighbor know that the project will be work. Approximately, if we're allowed to build, it's about 18 months. The working hours I'm putting up there, if anyone want to know, the construction hour probably within 8 to 6, off Sunday, I'm sorry. Saturday will be 9 to 5, or maybe the contractor was not planning to work on Sundays at all. And we're happy to work with our neighbors on any concern that they have for our projects, if regarding of the trees, and one of the letter that we received regarding of the for the shoring, we're an engineer firm, so our engineers has looked at the projects. We'll provide proper shoring during the building stage. Soil reports is prepared, so we're confident that we can build, and then it will be safe for our neighbor. And I would like to have your support. Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you.
Commissioner Kraske.
Question. Do you have the arborist who wrote this report? Is he available today?
I do.
Yeah.
I have a copy with me. Do you want me?
I see a copy of it. Is the arborist himself here available today, or?
No.
No.
They're not.
Yeah, my concern really is with this report is regarding the trees that are slated to be removed. I'm looking at in the conclusion sections of this arborist report in the last page.
Yeah.
Saying about the fourth line down, while this is a somewhat steep lot, the removal of the trees will not have an effect on the slope stability as the entire slope is being developed. My question is, how do we know that by removing these trees that it's not going to affect the slope stability? I mean, it seems like they're probably holding the slope together. By removing them, I think would present a hazard.
Unfortunately, this will be a question for the arborists, and they conduct their site visit, their review and their peer review of the projects, and this is their conclusion with their report. So I can consult them, and they can give me more explanation. We can give a more thorough explanation of that particular reason, but I would say that would be their question, their answer.
Yeah, I would appreciate that clarification from the arborist if you're able to get that.
I will.
Commissioner Gordon.
That's me.
Oh, Commissioner Clifford. Right.
I'm going to put a little yellow dot
You
there
gotta
for
put
me.
one there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to start off with your operating hours. Are you willing to allow that to be a condition of approval? Because that's not normal construction hours according to city regulations.
Yes.
You would allow that to be added as a condition of approval, the 8 to 6 and the 9 to 5, I think it was. I don't have it in front of me anymore. 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., because the city's regulations are 7 to 7.
Yeah.
So you're willing to have that as a condition. The same goes for the 9 to 5.
Yes, sir.
All right. And now I'm going to ask about the trees also. On the survey that was presented to us, the Monterey cypress, the biggest of the trees, has an indication on it that it's only 6 inches around, 2 feet above. Now, I know that that's not correct. And have you and the neighbor talked about the trees in terms of who owns what there?
In terms of speaking with the neighbor, no, we haven't, but this will be the first step that I will take to talk to the neighbor about who own the trees. Now, regarding of the survey that were done, the same survey that did our lots actually did the survey for 325. That's the reason why we use the same surveyor, because he knows a lot, and he knows, he'd done the surveyor 2 years ago. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe 3 years ago. So that's the reason we go with him, and realizing that tree was misrepresented, I guess, on our side, we'll take the first initial steps to meet with the neighbor and to figure it out who actually owns the trees, and we're happy to work with the neighbor too.
Because you're gonna need to meet with him about the one down lower too, because based on the 14 to 15 inches at 2 feet above in the diagram that's on this plan, part of that tree is also on his property. So you're going to need to talk to him about those things, and I'm not certain what I'm going to do about that from up here. Thank you for those answers.
Okay, if there's no more questions for the applicant, we may call you back. At this point, we're going to open up this item to public comment. Anyone wishing to comment on this, please fill out the cards, orange cards in the back. You'll have 3 minutes. And the first person we're calling up is Lawrence Sanza. Oh, okay, well, we'll call Don Peters first. I think I had these cards out of order.
You need to go to the microphone, sir.
Oh, yeah, hand that to staff, and then they'll get it officially into the record. And then we can see it, too. They'll pass it around up here. Sorry, I didn't hear that, but, what? Oh, why don't you, if you have a comment, yeah, you'll speak into the mic, we'll get it on the record for sure.
Hi.
Hello.
Sorry. Don Peters is my name, and I own the 329 Beaumont. I don't want to grant access on my property. I don't want their machine ripping my property. The pine tree, there's a surveyor's monument about in the middle of it, a survey that was done years ago. I don't want to get those trees cut down. I planted them. I've known them for a long time. I think this new excavation is dangerous, actually. I know it's dangerous. If you could see that picture, that it's caved in. It caved in before. There's streetcar poles in it from San Francisco. What they did was the guy excavated it and it started caving in and he took off, never came back. It's a damaged piece of property, and whoever starts it, okay, and there was never any shoring done there. They just, like I said, I don't know if you've seen that picture I just dropped off. I only had one.
Christian, they're looking for the photo.
Oh,
You have another minute.
They're looking for it.
oh, okay.
They're looking for it.
But the trees are on my property, and like I said, I don't want to really grant access to anybody. I don't want to be liable. But I don't know.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, I'm just not very good at this.
I appreciate the comment. Next up would be Rebecca Johnson.
Good evening. I am Rebecca Johnson, and my husband and I reside at 329 Beaumont Boulevard. I'm here tonight because since we moved there in March of 2014, so just over 4 years ago, we have seen two properties basically been dug out of the hill and abandoned. So this would be the third property in the span of 5 properties, so from 319 through 327, we would have 3 properties under construction on the hill. This is a big concern to all of us because of the fact that it damages the hill, it puts the hill at risk of slides, and when you're talking about more removals of more trees, that only exacerbates the situation. So we have a high level of concern about the integrity of the hill, the integrity of the property in which we reside, Don Lawrence and myself. And to Don's point, the property at 327, which is the proposed property, development property, was failed project several years ago. And as I said in my letter, and I do want to confirm that you have 3 pieces of documentation from us. My letter dated May 28th, from which I am reading now. And we also dropped off all these documents at 1800 Francisco. One regarding the original fill wasn't properly compacted, and the third, which was dated 5/31, which is around the trees. Again, I want to make sure, for the record, that all 3 of those documents are on file. So going back to Don's sort of concern here, not only in addition to the trees, but the fact that there wasn't proper shoring done the last time this project was under construction. The project was abandoned and given to the bulldozer operator in lieu of payment. The excavation, which was completed to the street when the hillside collapsed, therefore compromising his property, substandard fill was then used to fill the hillside. Again, underscoring we're concerned and formally filed these concerns for the integrity and safety of our residents, our home. And 2 other things I want to say before I run out of time is thank you for the hours of construction. That is a concern. When you are a working person, you want some peace and quiet on the weekend, so I'm glad to hear there won't be any construction on Sundays. And the third thing is I know that this qualifies or it triggers the mega home ordinance, and I want to make sure that the proper paperwork is filled out for that. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Next up would be Lawrence Sanza.
Souza, but thank you.
Souza.
Okay, so where do I start? If you look at really the hillside over there on Beaumont, we have 315 and 317 that are vacant lots. We have 319, which is another failed project. There was a collapsed hillside. Now somebody, I guess, took that over and is starting to do some work. They put some concrete in there, but they haven't moved on the property. I think that thing should be red tagged, personally. 321 Beaumont, they had problems building that one too. Ended up selling for cost because of basically the soil issues and the landscape issues. You do have under review right now 323 Beaumont Boulevard, which you don't know about, which is already under consideration. We have 325 Beaumont, which Brian Pung, I talked to him the other day when he was out in front of his, throwing some wood on his property. He basically admitted that he underestimated the geological issues associated with this site, and he probably should have done more geologic tests and surveying before he started the construction and tearing out the hillside, which I'm really concerned. I think there's another property owner here that lives up above that I would be concerned of collapsing or a failed hillside from the 325 Beaumont project that doesn't look like it's going forward either. And then we have 327 Beaumont, which is right next to our property. Basically,
Let's keep things quiet in the audience so we can hear the
it
comments.
has 327 Beaumont, which Don knows a lot of the history around it in regards to the collapsing hillside, the lack of shoring, and now you have the trees issues that are trying to be taken, and then the substandard fill that was put in there, which I'm concerned about. If that fill gets taken out like they took out the dirt at 325 and the same thing that they did at 319, you're just looking at another failed project. So I'm gonna end it there. I just think that just looking at these projects along this hillside and just really the lack of standard and care in some cases by the planning department and the building department not going out there and red tagging some of this stuff. I just think there's just some lack of care here, and I'm really concerned about the health and safety of our neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, next up is Rumi Mirza.
Hey there, good evening. My name is Rumi Mirza. I'm the owner of 296 Farallon Avenue. So if you were to envision looking up on this property, it's the house right above it. So I just want to echo what everyone else has been saying. We moved into the neighborhood in 2016. We bought that house, and it was all good, it was peaceful, and then all of a sudden one day at 323 Beaumont, they started digging. And as an engineer, I was interested, and so I spoke to the surveyor, I asked them if they had soil reports and the structural integrity. And after talking to one of the architects that worked on the previous project, I came to learn that that was a failed project in the past, and basically they dug out the hillside, and then, as I think what was mentioned, the city just backfilled it with subpar landfill. And so I'm not sure what has happened to that project, but if you look at how they've left it at this point, it is a site for sore eyes. And so I just want to bring that up as a concern. So A, they're digging into the hillside. We live above it, so I'd be concerned about the structural integrity of the hill when they're digging right below us for this project. The other thing is, it has been a challenging project to build on these hills because of the steep topography. And while you can build per se an 1,800 square foot house by not digging too deep, when I see the city approving such mega homes, 3,600 square foot, that really digs in. And the concrete that is used today, I don't believe it can hold the structural integrity of the hill that well during an earthquake, etc. So I would urge you to look into that, get a more detailed soil report, and look into those things. Then, of course, there's the concern of the tree and the natural habitat around there, and I mean, that's been spoken to as well, and that has to be resolved with the property owners. But that being said, if I could request something from the city of Pacifica, we love it here. I really would request that construction schedules be adhered to. So if they put out a strict schedule, they don't just dig out a piece of land and then leave it over there. It's a risk. We go for hikes around there, and given that our property is there, I'm afraid that, you know, sometimes if my kid is running out, he might just go a little further down the hill and fall into that hole. And so there's not proper fencing there, and there's just this big hole that is adjacent to our house down the hill, and that really scares me. So that's about it for me. I have 27 seconds left, but I'll give it to anyone, or if you guys have any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, and we can't ask questions, so. Yeah. Sharon Ryan.
Hello, I live above Beaumont, and I've lived there since 1974, and I too have also seen the hillside change. They're Dolger homes all the way down till when they hit Gordon, and right at Gordon and Beaumont, that's when this one house was built several years ago, since the 90s, the one that's mentioned in Don's letter about how it was an eyesore for many, many years. And you came right up Gordon, and you had this beautiful bluff that had this horrible tarping on it, and all the structure that they used to try to build the retaining walls were made of wood, and they were falling down, and there was nothing anybody could do. We tried to talk to our homeowners association, but originally that project was supposed to be huge, and it's not in keeping with the neighborhood. It may be going to the right, but going to the left, it's not. Those Dolger homes are much smaller, and there was nothing we could do about it. And I walked around my neighborhood today, for example, and there's several properties above Beaumont on Farallon, where this gentleman is from. There's been a lot of construction up there. There's a lot of properties that are for sale. And every single new home that has come in since I've been in the neighborhood, they cut down all the trees. And that hill is one hill going all the way past Beachview. It goes Beachview and then Farallon, then Beaumont. That's all one hill. And all the trees are disappearing. People are cutting all their big trees down behind their houses and everything. And if we ever did have flooding, as he mentioned, it's so steep there that it's just going to literally wash away the people on the other side of Beaumont below that, these homes that are built, the 5 in a row. And it's terrible because the bluff is so beautiful and it's so spectacular when you're walking down or coming up the hill to see that beautiful bluff. But all of these construction projects really are not kept in line because they're not kept in line with the housing next door, nor the time frame, nor the mess that they leave behind. Nothing is done about it. And it's been a terrible eyesore for many, many years. So that's the end of my situation there, and I'm worried about all the trees being gone from every new home that's been built. There's not one single tree on any of those homes, not one single tree left. So.
Thank you. The last card I have up would be for George Frink. Just hand the card to staff. Thank you. George Frink.
Hi, thank you. George Frank. I live at 341 Coral Ridge Drive in the neighborhood. At a high level, I'm actually in favor of projects like this. I do encourage development in the area, and I think the proposed design, again, details aside, the proposed design looks to me rather tasteful. So I like the idea, but as has been echoed by a number of others, this particular area has proven to have a number of abandoned projects in the past. So if I guess Mr. Peters' home kind of demonstrates an existence proof that you can build there of a certain size home. So perhaps it is the size. But if we could get, I would like to see some assurance, I don't know if the Planning Commission has the authority to at least have some level of deposit or bond set aside that since previous projects have been abandoned, we'd like to have a correction plan in case the project gets abandoned so that we can at least fill it and return it to something at least not halfway done and abandoned. Thanks.
Thank you. Last card I have now is from Helena, Pacholik. You'll have to correct me, I'm sure.
Hi, I'm homeowner at 342 Coral Ridge, and I used to work for the Fairmont Homeowners Association, so I remember back in the 90s they were going to develop what they said was 300 and 301 Coral Ridge, I think. Well, maybe they only called it 300. And I think the address may have changed in those two lots. There are two that were owned by one party, but maybe they've been sold since. That's what the association told me. But now then I heard about the lots down the street more, and I've seen how it's been very drawn out to get the work going on. We're kind of wondering what's going on, if there's a problem there. And the lot that's farthest to the right at the top of Gordon, there was construction there back in the 90s. When I was working at the Homeowners Association, there was notation about that property that there was a problem there with that they couldn't finish the construction. So I'm just kind of wondering, because they started again last fall and then abandoned it. It seems that it's been many months, and we're wondering, well, why, and if there's going to be a problem there again. So I came to kind of ask about these things. Thanks.
Thank you. That is the last comment card I have, so I'm going to close public comment and bring this matter back to the commission, except for the applicants. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Applicant, you can come up and respond to any of the public comments that you've heard.
He has 3 minutes. He has 3 minutes.
You have 3 minutes, but we can ask questions that might extend that.
Okay, thank you. One of the main concerns is the abandoned projects and the structural integrity of the property. We're going to assure neighbor proper soil report was done. Our team of structural engineers had various experience to build on hillside. Multiple projects that we went through in the past that were in Brisbane, very steep hill, outer in San Rafael, very steep hill. We are actually confident that we could provide a very, very sound structural integrity so the neighbor can review. And giving the sample of how past projects are, I believe the building departments are more engaged, I believe, when we're submit for building plan check, and I believe we're more engaged in working in a more suitable structural design for this lot. And like I said, the owners are He's a contractor. He had 30-year experience in this field, and he is building for his retirement home. So I don't believe this is something that he would abandon. And this will be, he'd been looking forward to work on this project for a very long time since, and you know, we've been applying, and in our side that we're holding him back, but he's eager to start, and he will be working on this project on his own with his team. Thank you. Is there any questions?
Yeah, it looks like we do have some questions. Commissioner Clifford?
Is he willing to provide a completion bond?
I would speak to him. I would definitely talk to him, and I believe something that he will consider.
Okay.
A completion bond.
It's something that needs to be talked about, though, between you and the builder.
Yeah, I'm confident he'll be looking to do that. But I'm like I said, I'm confident that he'll willing to post such a bond. But I would talk to him. That'll be something. Oh.
Excuse me, if you allow me to speak, I'm the owner of the lot.
Sure.
Okay, believe it or not, I'm a long-term Pacifican. I live on 330 Beaumont since 1980s. I lived there for, 1990s. I lived there for 10 years before I moved on. And, I do know Don Peters, and I know the situation on that particular lot from the beginning. That lot has been abandoned since 1980s. And I took the initiative to purchase the lot. I did have several approval. Unfortunately, didn't work out because I was partnered with the neighboring lot owner, tried to do something about it. Unfortunately, nothing has been done in the past 20 years of my ownership. I owned the lot since 1999. However, with the proper engineering, I do believe the lot being built is way much better than what it is right now. Whether the tree would be an obstacle or not, I can more than happy to talk to Don. Tree shouldn't be a main issue. Whether the job could be completed, that is the main goal, which I'm more than happy if there's such thing called completion bond. I don't see why not. I'm not coming here to fool around. I spent a lot of money on the drawing this time, last time, the time before. And I've gone through the hearing several times. Usually I keep my mouth shut, then let all the committee make the decision. And this time, it's important to me. The particular design we came up with ICE architecture is something I really want. And the design is based on the maximum height, the lot coverage, and of course the real amenities for myself. Since I'm a long-term Pacifican, I have no purpose to fool around and try to jeopardize my neighbors. That's all I could say. And currently, I'm sorry, that's it.
Thank you. We've got a question from Commissioner Rubenstein.
Yeah, some of the speakers spoke about adjacent parcels, and frankly, it was a little confusing for me. I wasn't exactly sure how it related to your parcel, but so my question to you is, were you involved in the development of any of those other parcels? And for the parcel that you've owned for this application, were you involved in any previous development? And I mean, work on site?
Sorry, I don't own the next door parcel. When I'm talking about when I did joint venture with the next door neighbor owner and submit couple plans has been approved. However, it never materialized because there's a partnership issue. And since then, I believe they sold the neighbor 325. My partner sold his lot to the current owner. When was that? I'm not quite sure. That's why I have no idea what's going on with the current project, and which nothing to do with me. In the previous project, even though we got approval, however, we never touched the ground. We never did excavate. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Snegging.
My question's for the city attorney regarding the viability of a completion bond for the neighbors. I remember a case in 801 Fassler where we'd asked about that, and it wasn't an option for pursuing. Is there a reason why it might be possible for pursuing in this case and not the 801 Fassler case?
I don't recall the completion bond in the 801 Fassler. Is there any?
Do we have the right to request one if it's mutual agreement on there?
Well, I would offer that it's not part of our standard process. It's something that staff would ask for the opportunity to consider and provide a recommendation on before the commission might require it. Our typical procedure is that we give an applicant a building permit. They have a finite period to execute their construction project with that building permit. In the event that they don't complete it, the city pursues nuisance abatement for partially completed structures. And so that's the way things work currently under the city's code. Sounds like there have been some challenging circumstances on this site over recent decades, but doesn't sound like any of those circumstances are attributable to the applicant that's before the commission.
And thank you. And are there two other close properties that are being submitted for development?
There are 3 properties in the vicinity, one immediately to the west, or if you're looking at the project to the left at 325 Beaumont. The commission approved that project as the applicant's architect indicated. The building permit for that project was issued and expires on September 2018. There was a project to the left of that at 323 Beaumont, approved by the Planning Commission. That project has not pulled a building permit yet, but after speaking with the owners recently, they indicated they were trying to pursue some sort of common construction schedule with 325 to save money on retaining walls, but that didn't work out. They're intending to get back at work relatively soon, or I should say to pull their permit and begin work. And then lastly, at 300 Coral Ridge, a few lots to the west or to the left of 323 Beaumont, they are actively pursuing their project. They most recently, on May 11th of this year, passed a footing inspection. And that property was also recently purchased by new owners in March of this year. And so it appears, by all accounts, that project is moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more questions for the applicant, so thank you. All right, at this point, I'm going to bring it back to the commission for deliberation. I had one question for staff, actually. All those projects that you mentioned that were in development in the vicinity, is there common ownership amongst them at all, or are they all
Not to
separate
staff's
owners?
knowledge. The owners indicated on all of those applications were separate entities.
Thank you. No, I'm sorry. Commissioner Clifford.
Okay. I'm going to start out with, and be flat out on this, until I have some definition on who owns the trees, I'm not going to be willing to okay cutting them down. I just, if they're on their property, I won't have a problem with it, but if it's a shared tree, which they appear to be, they're going to have that worked out before I can move forward with this project. I might suggest if these trees are a problem for this project, they shrink it in a little bit on the sides, and then bring it back to us that way, so that the trees are no longer an issue at all.
Thank you. I don't see any of the lights right now, so I've got a question, I think, for staff. I heard all the public comments. Looks like, if I paraphrase it right, there's a concern about the cumulative impacts of development on this steep hillside that could lead to a public hazard of some sort. what's the city's thinking on the various stages of excavation and what's proposed on a cumulative basis?
Sure. I think we are relying on qualified structural and soils engineers to design these projects to be independently stable and designed for the site context. We have not been presented with any information that would suggest that any of these projects constructed on their individual lots would present any type of cumulative impact to the slope. Folks are speculating that, and there's perhaps some common sense element to that, but from an engineering technical standpoint, the professionals that are preparing these studies and analyses and designs have not indicated that there is such a hazard. And so staff's relying on those licensed professional engineers to prepare appropriate plans for these sites.
Yeah, that's, and to clarify, yeah, I don't want to question the qualified engineer. They're the experts. I'm just wondering if a cumulative, if each engineer is doing their own analysis in isolation, or are they doing it cumulative wise? Because we've seen some issues in other parts of the state and other parts of the country where homes have been built on steep hillsides, and there's been catastrophic flooding, landslides, where I'm sure each home was built pursuant to an engineered, was built pursuant to a stamped, engineered plan, but in isolation, but cumulatively, I wonder, that's my question, has anyone kind of looked at all this cumulatively together?
Well, what I can offer is, in the event that the commission were to opt to continue this item, which I think remains a possibility at this point, given some questions about the heritage trees that are on site, we could certainly ask the applicant's qualified professional engineers to comment on that issue, to take a look at these other projects in the immediate vicinity and render an opinion in his or her professional judgment on that issue.
Thank you. That's a good suggestion. Okay, Commissioner Rubenstein.
Yeah, just quickly, so one of the neighbors, Don Peters, had mentioned access to his property. Does the project require access to the adjacent properties for it to be built?
The applicant's not indicated at this point that access would be required. It's my sense from the method of construction that they'll probably be excavating down grade on their own property, and it may not be necessary to enter the other property. However, if the trees in fact prove to be on the adjacent property or straddling the property line, then access perhaps may be required. So I think we would ask the applicant's follow-up response to address that as well.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any lights, but I certainly would appreciate thoughts of the commission on some of the issues that have been raised. Commissioner Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. Let's see. I thought the Chair Campbell and Associate Director Murdoch had a very good suggestion about having an examination of the cumulative impacts of all of these projects in the neighborhood. I think it's a great idea. It seems to be a core issue. Some of the pictures that I think the neighbor at 329 Beaumont submitted does seem to indicate, there isn't any narrative that goes along with the pictures, but they do seem to indicate there's some kind of property line marker right smack in the middle of one of the trees. And that gets to Commissioner Clifford's comment that the trees are an issue. And it seems as though since the neighbors know each other, that they might want to resolve that issue. It does seem kind of awkward to approve the removal of a heritage tree that's partly on the site of another property owner who says that he planted the tree. So those are two issues. I'm just giving thoughts. The design itself is beautiful. It's just a gorgeous design, and I would love to see more of these kinds of designs in Pacifica. It's modern, it's tasteful, it's elegant. It works really well with the topography, and kudos to the designer. So I was very excited about this project, and but the deeper you dig into it, no pun intended, you do see some issues. So I would love to see the project built, but I would love to see it built in a way that's you know, I feel for the neighbors who, a couple of the neighbors came and spoke who live on top, who live above, and it's got to be a little unsettling, no pun intended, for the neighbors above to be seeing, you know, this kind of project potentially built. On the other hand, you know, it's not really fair to punish the present applicant for the sins of other builders who tried on adjacent properties and failed and abandoned their projects in various states. It seems like a completion bond would address that issue so that if the project did start and had to be stopped for whatever reason, that the neighborhood would have some recourse to restore the area, restore that lot to a you know, to a reasonable state. So it seems like a completion bond would really address that issue. And like I said, it isn't really fair to punish the applicant for what other people have done. Those are my thoughts at the moment.
Thank you. Commissioner Clifford.
I got so focused on the trees that I did not say that I actually do like the project. I think it is a very attractive project. In fact, I'm personally leaning towards not frosting the glass because on their deck, because it just, that will make that project appear bigger, and it will also reduce the enjoyment of the property itself by having the glass frosted and losing your view out from the house. So I have thought about that a little bit. I think it's a lovely project, but there are issues, and when everybody has had the opportunity, I'm going to go ahead and move to continue this item so some of these questions can be answered.
Yeah, I'd just like to take the opportunity to echo Commissioner Gordon and Commissioner Clifford's comments there. The house, the project itself, everything else about it is really attractive. I think it's just, we're looking for clarification on a few issues here. Commissioner Rubenstein.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. I think the design is refreshing, and it's nice to see a quality design presented before the commission. I would like to urge the commissioners to rely on the professional reports that are generated by the geotechnical and soils reports that indicate that this site is developable, and not second guess that based on some perceived risk. And certainly, I think the general contractor would have to have his own qualifications to do those types of excavations and that type of work. It's a special class of license to be able to do that stuff. So those are my thoughts.
Well, I actually appreciate that comment. I kind of want to go back and just get the thoughts of staff on that. As you know, I'm loath to question the professional opinion of architects and engineers. What I'm understanding here was that there wasn't a cumulative type of look at what's going on on that hillside amongst several projects that were in development or about to be starting development in geologic terms kind of simultaneously. So I'd be curious on staff's thought. Is this being unreasonable to ask for a cumulative impacts analysis, or and I'm not in a CEQA sense, but just kind of as a city taking a look at this, or not?
I mean, in my opinion, I think it's a reasonable aspect of the project. I think it relates to public health, safety, and welfare. I think, there are neighbors in this neighborhood that have concerns about this, and we're not asking the applicant to go into a full-blown, detailed engineering analysis of every site. That would be very costly and burdensome, and I would have issue with. I think we should ask them, the applicant, to have a qualified professional describe how, if at all, the surrounding projects could impact this site, and what measures, if any, are necessary in the engineering design to account for that. And we'll leave it rather open-ended for the applicant's qualified engineer to address the cumulative construction concerns.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's see, Commissioner Gore, no, who's it? Commissioner Stegnick.
I agree with both Mr. Rubenstein and Mr. Campbell. I'm very wary of a single homeowner in a line of three being charged $1 million to repair the neighborhood when the others don't get hit in the slightest. And I would absolutely like to see it done, and without it preventing this project from occurring. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more lights for Commissioner Clifford.
Well, if there are no other lights other than mine, I'm going to move to continue this item so that we can get some of the answers that we're looking for.
And is staff comfortable with what we're asking clarification on? The tree?
Yes, we're comfortable. I think we received appropriate direction to carry out the commission's intent to gather more information. I would recommend continuing to a date certain. So it's a little bit aggressive, but I think it may motivate the parties to work together. The next date we have is June 18th. Alternatively, we would have to look at July 16th, which is a rather lengthy delay due to staff's recommendation to cancel the July 2nd Planning Commission meeting. And so with that in mind, we can look to June 18th if it's the desire of the commission. And if the parties are not able to bring themselves together to agreement or need more time, we can continue the project again.
I'm perfectly comfortable with June 18th.
Okay. Well, we've had a motion for continuance. Is anyone comfortable making a second?
Yeah, I would second that.
All right, we've had a motion and a second. Please vote. All right, that passed unanimously, so this matter is continued to, and I've already forgot the date.
June 18th.
June 18th, thank you. All right, on to communications, commission communications. Any commissioners have any? I don't see anything. On to staff communications, please.
Have something here on a sticky note, if you just give me 1 second to pull it up. Usually somebody's got something to say on that.
I know.
Throw me off here.
Cannabis ordinance? Anything?
Right. I did want to remark that the city council did adopt the ordinance for 801 Fassler, implementing the development plan and the rezoning. As you remember, the commission approved the development permits for that project and recommended the ordinance to be approved and adopted by council. So the council did take care of that on May 29th. And additionally, at the May 29th city council meeting, the council introduced the short-term rental ordinance. And so the second reading for adoption will take place in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
All. Thank you.
Will you need a commission present for that, or no?
We did not typically have a commission liaison for the second reading.
Thank you. All right, I think we are at the end. All right, Commissioner Clifford.
I move to adjourn.
And Commissioner Steggy.
A second.
We got a motion and a second. Please vote. Passes unanimously. Meeting is over. Thank you.
Those trees aren't documented, you know, and the idea that you're going to get one to like, this needs to go back.
Comments were I guess I better myself. So I was
Yeah, no, that was it.
It's good.